Wamba, Louis Samuel, and Serrano peoples. So before we begin, I do want to respectfully acknowledge and recognize our responsibility to the original caretakers of this land, Father Air, and their ancestors and descendants, past, present, and future. So to many indigenous peoples from all over the world, and we express our gratitude. I also want to say thank you to our indie authors who are here tonight. We've got Steve Weck, who's we've got some India, and Dave Gamboa. Wave, hi everybody. Please take a few minutes when after the reading, go say hi, check out their books. We also have Em, who is the queen of vintage printage. Hi, Em. And we've got Bob, our typewriter views. So, great typewriters. We've got so much going on. And there's an open mic. So, after our reading, if you have not already signed up, see Janine right over there, and Janine will be happy to put your name down. I also want to say thank you to our staff who are here. We've got Janine, who's our programs coordinator. Hi, Janine. Probably most of you know her. We've got Fernanda at the back. Fernanda, she's our publications coordinator. And we've got Kimmy Palacios, who's ruining the campus tonight. So we are live streaming this. So thank you. And we've got Mike, our handy-dandy book sales guy, who's been volunteering longer than I've been with Inlandia. And Ralph, who's never volunteered before, I don't know who he is, but he's taking care of the boxes. So, thank you. So, with that, I want to go ahead and introduce our readers. So tonight we have with us Judy Kronenfeld and Allison Hedge. So, welcome. So I'll introduce them individually for their readings. So first, I do want to bring up my good friend Judy Kronenfeld, who I've known since before I became a mother. So, and my oldest is now 22. Oh, and my youngest is back there. Oh, hi. We're going to introduce my son to all this world. That's Bradley. Hi, Bradley. I'll see you in a second. So, Judy Kronenfeld is lecturer emerita, Department of Creative Writing at UC Riverside, and she is a first-generation American and ex-New Yorker. She's the author of 5 full-length collections of poetry, one of which is her brand new book, Groaning and Singing, which we are here to celebrate tonight. And Judy is also the author of a controversial critical study called Thin Layer and Judy. So if you have any questions about that or anything, please see Judy. And welcome, Judy, come on up.
Yeah, I'll have to. Okay.
When you start speaking. Hello.
There's a walkie in there for you.
First question, the most important one. Can you hear me? Yay, good. This is my first in-person reading in 2 years and 4 months. And I am excited and a little nervous to get out of the habit, right, of doing the things you used to do during this long lockdown. Same for me. I'm going to do my best. And if you don't hear me at some point, please just wave madly and I'll get the idea. Okay? I'm going to read from Groaning and Singing, which just came out in February. That's a lovely cover by my artist friend, Lina Blossom, which I'm really grateful to have. But I'm going to read from pages because it's a little bit easier for me and I don't have to come looking for the right page. So hopefully they won't fly off.
Yeah, the clipboard.
I'm going to begin with a small poem called Musical Surprise. It has 2 Yiddish words in it. One is vetch, which is to explain, and the other is kibitz, which is to jump around. It also has the word Kazakhsky in it. Anybody know what that is? Kazatsky. Okay, Kazatsky is the name of a Slavic folk dance, and you'll know what I mean as soon as I tell you that the signature move is for the male dancers to squat on their haunches and then kick out their feet from the knees, which always looks like it's impossible. Musical surprise. All through the klezmer concert at the synagogue. All through the wailing, laughing, talk-back violin. The clarinet, cavorting and kazatskying. And climbing up to cry from the rooftops. The cymbals, shushing and tisking. The sax, keening and weeping its ecstasy of prayer. My dead father and mother sit down beside me, and my unmet father's sister, who never left Germany, and my mother's parents, who died before I was born, and their parents before that. All of them silently fetching, kibitzing, groaning, singing, all the way back. For me, at this point in my life, the past, the distant past, is rather like what Faulkner described in one of his stories as not a diminishing road, but a huge meadow that winter never quite touches. You get to a certain age, and you look back on your childhood and the years after that, and it's as if you can discover new things about it again. It's all yours to survey. So this poem that follows is a little bit of a resurveying of some work that my mother did when I was a kid. I'll just say that going out for dinner was not a very commonplace thing when I was a child. Paid work. With a wave like a flag's over Yankee Stadium, my young mother runs down our Bronx street toward the subway and her new job in a Manhattan doll factory as I set out for school, apartment key hanging from my neck on a red ribbon she gave me, scuffing the shoes she polished against the sidewalk. All day she will stuff gray capons into the cloth arms and legs and torsos of pale pink baby dolls. Breathe in rag dust in the fluorescent lit perpetual dusk of the brown windowed loft, and yak with the girls over the clackety hum of the sewing machines until the boss squawks about the output. At lunch, she descends in the accordion-gated, open-sided lift into the blaze of the honking Manhattan street, stampeded by busyness moving west and east, boys running wheeled racks of tuxedos and overcoats, secretaries and shoppers wearing veiled fascinators and feathered toques, clicking by in sling-back sandals and two-tone spectator puffs. A hurried pastry and coffee at the counter of the luncheonette, while the boss's bookkeeper wife, adorned with her little heads and feet of mink, dines on salami and eggs at the deli. And Mom is back on the floor until time to rush home again, and when weary Dad arrives, gaily suggests dinner at the 161st Street cafeteria for the three of us. 60 years on, I read in the LA Times about Mukta Mola and Kanchi Hazi, who skim like breezes over the rubble streets 6 days a week in their pristine shalwar kamises, on their way to 8-hour sewing blouses in the glare and din of beauty garments, private, limited, Dhaka, Bangladesh. and proudly send half of their tiny salaries home to their natal families, in villages where mothers-in-law tyrannize their younger sisters. And I remember my mother in 1953, her eye aglit with that fresh sense of entitlement. This next poem is not from the distant past, but the moderately recent past, and it's sadder. Selling. It moves from the world of no, particularly an advertisement, to something about my dad in his last days. Selling. Heads thrown back after one bubbly sip. The young in soft drink commercials seem as lavishly happy as lottery winners. They look the way we imagine ourselves on the stages of our dreams. Glamorous, anointed, spotlit. Our luck about to spill into graciousness. And even in ads for walk-in bathtubs, incontinence floors, stair chairs, dementia care, the actors don't merely grin and bear it, but almost chortle, like Cheshire cats, who just swallow these amazing berries, though the old they represent are more like expiring birds. But the worst soft fish, these personal Christmas pictures I'm looking at again, taken years ago in the dementia wing of my father's retirement home. In another life, his face would say, "This is ridiculous." Even if he sat in the appointed armchair by the tree and hugged the enormous white teddy bear as instructed. But he is in this carpet life, and guilelessly presses his warm cheek against the bear's fuzzy one and stabilizes the bear's plump feet with his free hand as if they were a child's. The humiliation of that still hurts me when like, what will they do to make a buck to the humans that they care for? Well, obviously almost anything. Okay, another poem from that distant past I was talking about. In the culture of my youth, which was in New York City, in the Bronx, that very unglamorous borough, in an apartment, a very small apartment. When you went outside, you went downstairs. And when you went outside in the 50s and 60s, early 60s, you wore, if you were a woman, a street dress, not a house dress. The house dress is what you wore in your apartment. On the roof. This is a little longer than the previous one. The tar-like surface was warm and sticky, as if it could be picked up and reshaped, and billowy as the ocean on a mild day. When Mother, carrying the basket of wet laundry, and I, the bag of clothespins, emerged from the dim and narrow stairs that led from the 6th floor of our building to the roof. It took a moment to get our sea legs. This was so long ago, there were few TV aerials, and Mother wore her tailored street dress, as if leaving our cramped and stale apartment to go up and out was equivalent to going downstairs. I was still too small to reach the clothesline, but I could hand her the worn, smooth wooden clothespins that looked like armless men with tiny, featureless, round heads. She fought the weight of wrung-out sheets and flopped them on the line, where gradually she stretched them out until they flapped like sails, white and brilliant in the windy sun, all at once trying to fly and staying in place. From that roof, all city dwellers' unseen presences en masse felt palpable to the far horizon. The sky, washed and rinsed with light, hung with thin drifts of stratus, was enormous as the prairies. I think of other roofs I've seen since then, the terrace roofs filled with tanners' dye pits, indigo, poppy, saffron in Marrakesh, roof patios in Damascus on whose parapets mint and oregano grew in small pots. Even the roofs of Cairo high-rises, where squatters sheltered in fragile lean-tos shaded like farms. And how all of us citizens could breathe a little better in the higher, freer air, and perhaps more than the magnates of my native city, surveying their infinity pools and glamorous views through penthouse windows, could feel the kinship of existing under the immense and common sky. I think it's time to fumble with my pages and not lose them, thank you. Okay, this is a very different poem, and it actually came from an effort to try to describe what the title says, how it is in time, which is growing in a way that was somehow wholly, almost impersonal and beautiful. And so that was a challenge I set to myself. But it's still not completely and utterly easy, as you'll see. How it is in time. The thin skin of the arms imprinted like sand, over which waves have drawn back and come hissing in, sweeping across each other, leaving their echoes like netting. And invisible beneath the skin, the bones of translucent porcelain, their lattices growing lacier, starker, like branches in a winter forest of birch. And hair of hoarfrost feathers, retinal smoke and mirrors, spindle ankle dizziness, then something, a silvery harp arpeggio, ice-sheathed twigs tinkling in a mild wind, a prelude to some memory. But after, only an unblemished Arctic whiteness, like music's silence. This is called Late. I am musing as we lie in our bed before sleep, you engrossed in your book, me wandering in mine, after our day spent tending the house plants, repotting the bromeliad and the orchid, staking the leggy ficus. I am asking myself, what happens when the days we lay looking up into the canopy of breeze-blown, intertwined leaves. In the blue lights, in the translucent green shade, shaking shaking and flowing, lifted and thrown, or yet it's gone. What happens when the world stops pulsing like the butter-packed sun dissolving into its own melt over and over again, flashing like a sped-up caution light? When the squinted eye stops catching its trail of gold coins slanting down the sky. And then you bind the fingers of your right hand with the fingers of my left. Something so quiet and undesigned you never did at night when we were young. Even song, or even song. Outside for hours, stretching to top the heavenly bamboo, bending to cut the dry lavender stalks, then taking a slow stroll as the afternoon begins to close. Late glow cherishing white garage doors, backlit pine turned into glass-beaded fringe, the beads dazzling up and down the needles until the drama of the light quiets. Thank you, I don't know who. And for lamplights, bright halo beside my reading chair, over my bed. And for my bed, the loft of its covers. For sleep when it comes, its loft, its covering. I want to praise, dear no one, and to thank you of the blank signature for the ongoing book I bring to bed, in whose world I so easily remain, its pages turning pleasantly over and over like days. I'm going to read two poems about progeny. As in I have two kids who are well into middle age and 4 grandkids. This poem is called Definitional, and you'll see by the end of the poem, the last line, it's not too long a poem, why it's called that. Definitional. Irresistible belly dance music on. We girls all alone during my quick visit from the opposite coast. Shoulders wiggling, hips twitching, spring into crazy moves in my daughter's tiny living room in our jeans and tees. She, with the munged cartilage excised from her right knee, leading. I, with my tender knees, one replaced, one not, and my 6-year-old granddaughter of the shy, sidelong smile, the only one of us whole. All go for it. Undulate and kick, furl and unfurl hands, whirl and dip and drop, laughing into chairs, trying to catch our breaths. I have fed on a good, reliable bread of contentment, but this was dripping fistfuls of sequin confetti, flung into the air and hanging for a moment, crackling like fireworks. This sudden, utterly impractical, small sweet of joy. This next poem is actually about my son. some months after I wrote it about whether to share it with him. I really went through a horrible period of trying to decide. It's very complimentary, but I still didn't know how he would take it. Well, it's not, I guess it's not 100% complimentary. Anyway, I did show it to him, and he was wonderful about it, so big sigh of relief. It's called Gold. Such rare visits, and usually on the third day, my middle-aged son, living a continent and an ocean away, says, as if he's had a chance to ponder it, and it's quite a pleasant surprise. It's really nice to see you, Mom, and gives me a quick embrace, like a light wool shawl stolen from my shoulders, just as I begin to appreciate its worth. Which is notable, nevertheless, because his greeting and goodbye hugs always preserve the space between us, like a band of insulated air, and make me think of the way men make even quicker work of mutual pats on the back. But this time, he was in the kitchen, rinsing dishes for the machine, and I was ferrying the last ones from the table, and everyone else was, I don't know, locked out by the shine. And he said, "It's really nice to see you, Mom. Can I have a hug?" Praise memories pushed down storage, unerased. Praise swift retrieval. And of course, he said, depositing my dishes on the counter with tempered alacrity. "It feels good to hug you, Mom," he said, during the long seconds beaten out like gold to blazing brilliance. "And to hug you too, thickly," I murmured. The last poem is a little different in scope. It's called Terrestrial. Pale gibbous rock, craters and mountains almost showing, blooming into the blue wash of early evening as I leave the grocery looking up, and the blackbirds flowing underneath, scrolling and unscrolling. "What are you gazing at?" someone on her way in asks, expectation in her voice, as if a planetary phenomenon might be occurring. "Just the moon," I say, "our piece of stone, low in the wide brush of sky, flammable, familiar, strange. For a moment, not the moon, silver disk hammered to an adornment's thickness, but simply a moon in its 3D murkiness, as if I were looking out at a barren body spun off a spiraling exoplanet over some primordial horizon. Yet, how soon, unhesitating, evening sinks down with slow, accustomed graciousness as I drive home. It's almost dark as I carry my bread, cheese, and apples tenderly from the car. The microflake moon, fixed above my chimney, begins its glittering. What an unearned sense of completion as I unlock my door, as if I've been out for hours in the perturbations of the air, as if I'd helped steer the blazing sun to its hiding place in the sea.
Thank you so much, Judy. And we're really honored to be your first reading post-pandemic. So I want to introduce our next reader. We have Allison Adele Hedge, who is a Fulbright Scholar, first Jade Nurtured Sui, Female International Poetry Award recipient, a recent Dan and Maggie Inouye Distinguished Chair in Democratic Ideals, and U.S. Library of Congress Witter Binner Fellow. She's the author of 7 books of poetry, 1 book of nonfiction, and a play. And following former fieldworker retraining in Santa Paula and Ventura in the mid-1980s, she began teaching, and she is now a distinguished professor of creative writing at the University of California, Riverside. So welcome, Allison.
Can you guys hear me okay? I had some surgery in the fall, and so it's really hard for me to get my voice out. So if it starts raining, you can wave at me or make make some kind of symbol and tell me to try to pump it up a bit. I haven't quite regained my voice yet, so apologies for that. This collection just came out about a week ago. Hey, Sandra, just about a week ago, so I haven't got used to where the pages are yet, and it is one piece versus a collection of poems. So it's an assemblage, so it reads a little bit differently, and I'm just going to move through parts of it. Thank you for coming out tonight. I was worried because of the wind for some seconds and it died down. And can we give Judy a round of applause who read beautifully? Just a terrific reading you just did. It was really moving. Thank you. Thank you to Katie and everyone in here from Inlandia for putting this together, and for all of you guys for coming out. So I'll just read a little bit from Look at This Blue. Once the world was gleaming, it was open, and we entered unknowing, believing all we came to we must deserve. Knowing we did not, we faced extinction. The path we have taken has water. Ignite, stand upright, conduct yourself like lightning, Tanya to the retribution. Look at this blue. Versus blue butterfly from the sand dunes of San Francisco, the first known American butterfly to become extinct due to humans, first known. Redwood burls cut like blisters, shaped from trunks, poach life from source, killing the giants in knobby growth removals, the baseline canopy height bud tissue, unsprouted genetic code for clone of a parent tree emergence. There was a barrel at my mouth, ready cocked. It was held there by my baby brother's bared grip. The lemon wedge half moon popped over, a flat constellation, over a sweet sound of yellow whistle and lodi water. Choro twill, the night language from standing cranes, sand hills, they've been there all along. We were standing still, knee-deep in station poles. Orion was hovering eastward, drawn, ready. Someone slipped past the door jam. Each chokehold fell, vaporized cognizance. In our world, as shaking herself loose, diabolical torrent, the rising throttle song of throttle breath, choked out between calligraphies. The madness clenched of fury and unfurled release. Misery was met in each pummeled break. It's not over. Sleep in despair, sleeping moth tongue, unrolled against central incisor, human-throated, the deep yearns for saxophone, a trachea windpipe. The Santos turtle, only saving grace, in wetlands, marshal. There's nothing here on guardian watch. Riverside, remember, he was reaching back for slip skateboard. He was hit so hard, he flew while braking. A crow above, whose wings were sunning, swooped at the same time the car careened to a halt on Martin Luther King Road, near Boardwell Park, east side, where the speed limit suddenly increases while approaching two closed crosswalks leading to homes from Stratton Community Center, Boardwell, Emerson Elementary, east side, black, brown kids and elders. Anyone can see someone once worked this out. City planning. Ishi died 13 years before I was born, so I have nice antidotes. Nothing about knowing him when I was a child. I'm sorry. Ursula Le Guin. It was custom to be introduced by a name and not to utter one own. UC Berkeley chose the man Ishi a name for him, which he accepted. He worked as a research assistant in the anthropology department, placed into a museum in the anthropology department. Yana continued living in California anyway, after declaration that Ishi was the last of his people. The last 4 other Yahi were seen in the bush. Yana, polysynthetic language with SBO word order. Yana, language so distinctive and having different word forms used by male and female speakers, unusual trait that does not exist in other languages of this region. 1999, finally, Ishi's brain was returned to Yana people, his closest relations. It's all going to burn, says a man accused of setting the holy fire. First the puma and Santa Paula palm branch, and then the coyotes, fox and rabbits appear. The birds overcome sky, plume. Then the entire yard a carpet of undulating fleas, so thick wrapping bread bags over feet and ankles barely made it passable. It was everything, escaping heat from firestormed arsenic, 120,000 acres blanketed, fired Los Padres National Forest and more, choking like the child they found, still hung there. Sleep in the dream of a veteran world, sleep in the dream of nightmare broken. What we carry howls, boggling. Her cheek contorts in flame unfanned and yet fanning. She eclipses all asunder and all broken. A scar face, a scar vision and temporal melt, all broken. Somewhere on my left face, I can still see where it was sewn back on, and on the right, the line across the eyelid where it was sewn back on. On the abdomen, the line where it was sewn back. Somewhere on my right hand where it was sewn, all the here's and there where they've sewn. All the biopsies, removals, explorations, wounds from assaults, sewn. 1985, 1996. What we carry weeps here, wet hair. Her cheek contorts when sprayed by the guard. For the first time she attempted, her neck ached. Meanwhile here, a third body found in Baldwin Hills fire. More missing, arson again. Someone is out there. Look at this blue, Palo Verdes blue, from the Palo Verdes Peninsula, one of the best claims to be the world's rarest butterfly. A first spot extinct by development, rediscovered, newly returned, lays eggs here on Deerweed. Notice the patterning on the underside of her wing. Child choked out at belt at throat, she returned to me in dreams. Child choked out belt at throat, she returned to me in dreams. A child choked out with the belt at throat, returned to me in dreams. They were only there seeking psychiatric help. She'd been exceptionally mean for days. Their grandson rode along while they sorted what they could of it, while her schizophrenia played out all sorts. They turned into the intersection by the mall in Ventura. A big tank of a thing T-boned him right down the middle of the car. So concussed, cops gave the ATM pin to taxi home. He'd lost a tooth, grandson's nose broken, she'd broken a leg, all three concussed. The dog in the other car was dizzy, some say. Later she took a call from her son and headed out to wire away her war widow's pension, walking on an unattended broken leg, senior living. Remember along the way the murdered Salvador, her cubs taken for claws, were all just symptoms of something massive faster over. They are killing us, weaponizing nature, sanctifying arms, consecrating each trigger-flexed hand. Dad, in his 80s, on top of the trailer roof, sprayer in hand, fighting back the ignition, not leaving until everyone else leaves, especially the guy next door. For the time he battled out of being rolled, just smoothly turned his cane horizontal, asking the punks who would like to join him when he dies soon enough, until they scrambled across the Kmart parking lot. Trigger turned to face every right to bear bitter, every night scheme daybreak flash. There is no need to fictionalize. This dude is what he is, what man made, what man. Sliced first somewhere in my mid-20s, stabbed then, missing children, women, taken somewhere. For me, it was a gully, a pond, a base, a van, a hall, a window. Here, where her hair shone blue-black all over her time, where throughout our childhood we never really cherished it. Yet when we found our mother's hair on others, we loved them, coveted long horse-like tails our lovers threw over their shoulders. The blue-black love we needed to know and never felt, until the later years when we could not get enough of her. What was wrong there, woven? What bind was pulled when the dog stole soup? The blankets, Pendletons, all blue as well, some with black, some with red, yellow, to bring the sun into this longing place, this place of loss, our childhood. We never cherished it. In her pyre, we gathered all of these with her and let it smolder, loved. Ines showed up one morning sometime in Santa Paula after my dad demanded that IRS pay him back owed arrears. When were you last in Mexico? They asked his wife. Our honeymoon, 1950. When will you return to Mexico? They asked. We're too old to travel, they note. His call came late. Where are your mother's naturalization papers, her green card? Can you fax them to INS, to IRS? They put your mother in a van to deport her to Mexico. She's Canadian, you note. Black hair, black eyes, short, dark complexion. Here, it's Mexican enough, he says. Send the papers. SB 622, Civil Detention Facility, State Investigation. Within 90 days after each individual's death here, the Department of Justice will make a public report. It could be any moment. State mayors cried, beautiful boy, made to eat cat feces and vomit. You were pepper sprayed, made to live in a cabinet in Fresno, bound and gagged at 8 because you might be gay. Beautiful child, taken at 10, beat, tortured, malnourished, whose mother and father tore into you, pummeled you for coming out, for coming out. Equations were made to name propensities, longing departures, intrusion, infusion, all one needs, to be viable in this state, or lack thereof. Where a man goes, comes an inevitable loss. It was always this way, intrusion, always this way, all as in one needs. After tens of thousands of generations before us here, laying a mile or so deep under the grounds, long now overwashed, in this world gone awry, the remains of the day, buried by the flow and ebb to it. I'm going to skip up just a bit. It's not even sectioned, this poem. It's just in assemblage, so it just runs all along. This is from about a quarter in. Katie mentioned that I did former field worker retraining in the mid-'80s. Before that, I was a field worker among other labor jobs that I was in that from childhood until the mid-'80s. And I moved to Santa Paula, did a former field worker retraining there, and Santa Paula was all orange groves. It was the other capital of the citrus Riverside, so very similar around that area. Behind us, it's all good. It's Riverside. Sounds like our neighborhood, Susan. It's all good. We just work with it. Where's the music though? It should start kicking in about that. The cats should come and start howling. Susan, I'm so fortunate to have moved into Susan's neighborhood when I came to Riverside 6 years ago. Susan straight in the back. Everybody give her a hand. Behind us, Limonada, a town of a camp, now some suburbia development that all sorts of workers, growers, since 1893 have lived in. Rancho Sespi, Flores y Cantos, La Lucha, Vihugo, Santa Paula, Como Paru, Oxnard Strawberries, Sataquay Records, Ventura Gold Beaches, the Hot Peppers, Shoulder Blood Alley, Ventura Freeway 126, Orleanders, Eucalyptus, Rhododendron. I come from the camps too. Not these, but I serve these children here now, teaching. Decades ago, when Olive Land's 7-year-old girl wrote in her poem, "My eyes are the green of August." I still see her eyes now. The condors replenish. A phoenix, a half-grown chick, survived the Big Sur fire, matured. A fathered egg with the red queen, whose initial mate was lost to the Dolan fire. All phoenix rises here. The blue-green egg and milky way split open up at night in some hollowed redwood on a cave floor dust on a cliff edge. Once my hand gleaned a plume from the cliff edge. Something called me to reach in and feel what left it, now gone. My fingers raked, pulled from pit, what remnant feather laid there, left there. Let love lead. Let your hand the pummeled rest. Let the scowl rest. Let face relieve. Let shoulders locked high, tight recede. Let feet cracked open, warm with ease. Let your back stiff, sore, bend open. Let your lungs swell breath like ocean. Let all of us, all of us, all of us, let all of us be unbroken. Take heart. Earth hears every tremble touch, feels each foot. Listen now. Bring her justice, protection, peace. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, that gave me chills. It's like meditating, listening to it. So thank you. I want to say thank you again to our readers, to Allison and to Judy. Let's give them another hand. So we are going to take about a 5-minute break so we can do the popcorn before the open mic. So we don't want popcorn, but it's not too loud. And then we're going to start our open mic. So next week, Susan's here in the back, but you can come here and listen to her read at the Culver Center, just right up the street. So come back, it's free, and we're going to celebrate her book launch, Mecca. So we are really happy to be here. We're really happy to be a part of so many launches, so many great books. So play with some typewriters. Yeah, and yes, please, and also take this time, of course, I'm not forgetting myself, buy some books. we've got copies of both books. We have a signing table at the back. So we'll regroup in just a few minutes, and thank you for all being here and braving the wind. I smell popcorn. All right. So welcome back, everybody. Are we ready for part 2? Okay. So the way this is going to go is I will introduce you by your name, but if you want to say a little bit about yourself, you can, and then read your poem. We have about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we will move along. So if everybody's ready, I would like to introduce our first reader, Mr. Alvin Chamberlain. Al, are you ready to get us started? Come on up.
I'd like to thank Vanya because before I attended any of the free workshops, I never tried to write a poem. And I learned so much from other people in my workshops. And learn from their writing and practice some more. Now I kind of use poetry as a form of therapy to get things out of my head. And the poem I'd like to read you is one of 6 war poems I've written since the war in Ukraine began, in 16 haiku. And it's a way of getting things, the images that I see and the things that I experience, they don't come out on the paper, but they just build up to the point where you're really stressed. So I wrote this poem last week called The War Against Truth. Truth is always the first victim of war, killed before the first bullet flies. It's dead and buried before the first soldier is killed or the first war wheel cries. The tyrant shoots down the dove of peace, smiling as it plunges to earth. No advisor or general knows how many innocent lives will be lost before its rebirth. The predator soldiers are told it's only war games until ordered to invade across the neighbor's borderlines. He doesn't believe there will be dire consequences since he's been allowed to do this many times. The tired subjects are told it's only the evil leaders of the nation that by force must be removed. He knows the state controlled media will never contradict his narrative, so his claims are never proved. The toll on innocent civilians is excused as collateral damage because they're at the sites of enemy forces. The predators' population are kept in the dark, unable to get news of the war by any other sources. Their economic deprivations are blamed on their enemies rather than their leaders' violent actions. The tyrant is afraid that if his people learn the truth about this invasion, they'll have a negative reaction. The predators' generals and advisors fear to tell them the truth of what's occurring on the ground. To obscure the failure of the quick campaign that they promised, they'll drop bombs and rockets all around. Out of fear and complacency, we allowed this tyrant and his best friend Assad to get away with this before. The tyrant's enemies in Damascus and Aleppo paid the price, and now the war has come to NATO's door. The internet, iPhones, and satellite news were all supposed to make this falsehood nearly impossible. Still, any means of communication is only positive when used by men who respect truth and are responsible. Secret police, riot police, and the state's prisons keep the tyrants informed citizens off the streets. In a society that uses repression as a tool, truth and justice appear to go down to ignominious defeat. Still, violence and oppression cannot forever hold back a repressed soul who's yearning to be free. Propaganda and lies will not for long prevent the truth from revealing itself and in the end sealing victory. The innumerable lies spread by totalitarian dictators in the Second World War were eventually swept away. Truth prevailed for a season, but Satan stirred up other tyrants, so his dominion on this earth would stay. These violent and deceiving tyrants have all lasted for a season before they fell. Truth and the light of freedom arose again like the fallen dove in those lands of wow. Today we see false authoritarian leaders and oligarchs telling us they have a better way to govern their lands. They don't know the truth of freedom flow from the hand of God, and in His time will ruin their plans. The reckless violence of these men fill many with the fear that the light of freedom will fail. Still, the Holy Spirit reassures me that the light of truth and freedom's flame will always prevail. I'd like to just read you a couple of haiku I wrote. They're just real short. This one's called the Peace Talk Haiku. Peace talks falter, tyrants gather weapons, and angels will weep. The angels will weep. This is called the conscription haiku. Conscription day arrives. Mothers are robbed of their precious sons. And the last one, the student's haiku. Schools are destroyed, young people learn the fragility of civilization. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. That was great. Our next reader is, I think, new to Inlandia, Jessie. Jessie, come on up.
Yeah, I promised that I printed out my phone after class today, but I don't know where it went. I was searching my backpack for quite a bit there. Maybe you got blown away by the wind.
Sounds like you loved it, and I took it with them.
Right. This is an excerpt from my moment called It's a Man's World. 1 billion women are raped each year. For men, it's 1. 15 million women are domestically abused each year. For men, it's 1/4 that. Take 18% off of the average man's wage, and you have the woman's at last. 2. Carry a pepper spray. Mother says when I go out for a run. I'll get you a stun gun, then a real gun. Except the law is that you can't take it for a run. So, pepper spray, she says firmly, handing me a small bottle. Ma, are you hearing yourself? I gesture to myself, incredulous. They can get others much prettier, much cheaper. Besides, the neighborhood's so empty. Besides, nothing like this has ever happened here. Besides, how much use is pepper spray even going to be? Take the pepper spray. So I go and I run with my phone and my pepper spray, both in my hand, because what's the point of a bag? Might as well let people know that I am not one of 1 billion. 3. 7 years ago, when my mother was still a doctor in China, she was sent to a rural village as part of her labor learning experience. She was an ophthalmologist, and the first day on her job there, she got a patient with her eyelid bust open. Her husband did it, the woman explained. It's nothing, as if she was talking about the weather. It's nothing new, doctor, if you can just patch me up real quick. I have my kids at home waiting for me. The saying went, my mother later learned, that 3 days without hitting your wife and you'll find her taking apart the roof. Oh, so that's how it works. 4. The old woman sitting in the old courtyard. She was so old. I've never seen a woman that old. She was a comfort woman from the Second War, people whispered underneath their breaths, one of the last few left. What's a comfort woman? Well, Mother explained, fury in her eyes, they were captives of the Japanese, some of them very young, your age, perhaps. They had to work for the soldiers during the day and get spoiled by the soldiers at night for years and years on end, some not released until years after the war. Was there reparation? I asked, recalling the demands being made across the Pacific Ocean. Reparation? Most of them were hurt so bad they couldn't have children afterwards. What could 1,000 yuan do? How can you count that suffering in money? I remember the old woman, sitting there, quiet and still, the wisps of her silver hair floating in the air like autumn leaves carried by a breeze. 5. A fourth girl that year, young and pretty, gruesomely hurt and killed by a taxi driver. How saddening. I'm glad it's far from me, until my father walks into the kitchen and says nonchalantly, "Look at her shirt, so scanty. Why isn't she covering more of her shoulders?" Who takes taxis alone these days, and in the evening, too? There's no help for her. My skin burned as if it was mid-August, but looking outside the window, I could see the snow on Mount Antonio's. "Dad," I replied, "would you say the same thing if it had been me?" "Well, now you know what not to do," he said. My mother rolled her eyes, telling me not to take him seriously, but my skin couldn't stop tingling irritably, because that's my father is. I suppose he sees the world differently, because he is a man. He has his own struggles and fears, much more intense than my own, I'm certain. But from that moment I knew, with the same certainty, that this is a man's world.
Okay, our next reader is Robert Merrill. Come on up, Robert.
Robert Merrill, retired teacher, playwright. If you want to know more about my works, go to robertmerrillplaywright.com. This piece is called Hugo. Don't tell me time heals all wounds, scars add character, or the bone grows stronger where the break was done. Years later, I have not healed, I am not stronger. The cuts weep, the bone aches. I hurt and rage through the world, wrecking and shattering a storm in myself. But how would you know? Sitting there with a calm eye, my best behavior. But it's my fault. I had to wall you off to protect you from the projectiles of my anger, hurled with hurricane force in all directions. My gales and flood, bolts and thunder will eventually dissipate. But know this. Another depression is developing over a distant ocean, heated with the memories of the horrors of what happened in the woods, in the basement, in the car, in the night. Destruction will come this way again. Its landfall forecast by a code of uncertainty. Even I cannot track.
All right, well, thank you, Robert. I don't know how you memorize those. I have not gotten to that point yet. So our next reader is Assunta Maria Vickers. Come on up, Assunta.
Hey, can you all hear me? Okay, great. So, my name is Allison Maria Vickers. I happen to be the editor of Fresh Ink magazine, which is the publication of the Inland Empire California Writers Club. If anybody's interested in that club, you just need to go to iecwc.com. I'm going to read two, because the first one is a mistake. I didn't realize it was going to be poetry. But I heard about the typewriters. Hello, typewriters. So I thought I'd share my little bitty story about my first typewriter, and it's way longer than the last few poems. All right. I remember. It was Christmas, the year I turned 16. I had recovered fairly well from my crushed left ring finger in the rowboat crash of 3.5 years earlier. When I opened my gift, I remember all I could do was smile from ear to ear. I mean, it had taken its toll, the 57 stitches to put my future wedding band finger back together, the painful bi-weekly bandages, the complete lack of sensation once the wounds closed up. The doctors all said the finger feeling would return as the nerves regenerated at a turtle's pace of 1/8 inch a year. Lots of physical therapy was in store for me. It didn't get me out of typing class in junior high, but the teacher was gentle with me and encouraging. I could do it, she said, she said that a lot, and never held me to the speed test, just the accuracy. And she let me look to see where that numb finger was going to land on the keyboard while the others in class were not allowed. I was amazed that I passed the class, and I was credited for that elective typing class. Typing wasn't so bad after all. Well, I was already writing stories as a teen in high school. I was processing life's many challenges, but it was all scribbles. I remember being grateful that it was my left hand that got hurt so bad and not my dominant one, so at least I could function, albeit clumsily. I tried not to think about how I'd ever be a beautiful bride the future moment when Mr. Wonderful would place a ring on that finger. Some sensation did return to my left ring finger very slowly as the years went by, but it still didn't work quite right. My mom somehow knew, as moms somehow do, what a meaningful therapeutic tool and what a prophetic gift would be for me just at that time. I would never have even asked. I had not even ever thought about it, nor did I see it coming. We were basically poor, so what I normally received for Christmas was a sweater, new pajamas, underwear, socks, and such. But this wrapped package was heavy. Total surprise. Perhaps she was paying more attention to me than I imagined. It was a beautiful blue and gray Smith Corona manual typewriter in its own case with a lock and key. There was another wrapped package, typewriter paper, that followed for me on that morning. Now I could really write. I wasn't very verbal in those days, but yes, I can remember happy smiling. At our IECWC general meeting in August of last year, we were spontaneously reminiscing about our old typewriters because on the Zoom, one of our members had a collection of them in the room behind her with one visible right there on her screen. And I smiled again with this memory from year to year. All right. That one was published in Fresh Ink, I don't know, sometime back. I think it might have been August, September. Okay, this one is a little bit more on the serious note. It's called Divorce dancing. Maybe some of you can relate. As a child, I loved to dance, especially twirls, round and round and round until finally dizzy. I fell on the grass, and to watch the sky spinning round and round, slower and slower until finally it stops and the blood in my head catches up with my eyeballs, and I lie there, not even wanting to move, as I begin to notice the tingling in my fingers and toes that reminds me that I am so alive inside. Well, now I am in a final dance with my soon-to-be ex, my husband of 17 years, and we have to coordinate our moves as we go round and round with the other dancers in this choreograph called divorcing. And it is taking so long, and I am definitely dizzy from all the spinning round and round as I watch the years get torn into pieces of things they call assets. And I want it to go slower and slower because it's so hard to really actually let go, but then my blood sometimes boils and I want it to just go faster so that it will please finally stop, so that I can feel the tingling in my heart and soul and learn how to be alive again. Thank you.
Thank you, Asunta. So our next reader is John DeFusco. Come on up, John.
Good evening, everyone. I'm quite honored to be up here with the poets that I've been listening to tonight. It was great. I ended up in Riverside back in 1969, 1970 when I was stationed at March after coming back from Vietnam. That's one of my fans right there. She's upset. So anyhow, yeah, I went to RCC for a couple of years. I went to Cal State Long Beach for a couple of years. I was in theater and an English major, and I did the thing in LA. So I was a working actor, done some film, done some TV, and a ton of theater. Some people know me for creating a play called Tracers, which was published as one of the 10 best plays of the year in the 80s in New York. I've been working on the poetry scene and the spoken word scene for about 10 years. I'm not a published poet yet, but I'm looking. And one piece I'm going to do, this one I know I can't read, so I'm going to do it, but I'm pretty sure it's in my head. Can everyone hear me okay? Because I don't hear myself. This one has a little rhythm to it. It's from a solo show that I did a few years ago. It had a lot to do with grief. I lost several siblings in a very short span of time. And so this poem actually comes off of another poem, which is a very somber poem called In the Morning Comes the Morning, based on the fact that we tend to think about the dead in the morning. And so after the whole somber poem, pick up the rhythm a little bit, and it goes like this. In the morning comes the morning light, I'm feeling all right. Got an angel on my shoulder, she helps me see the light. When I'm walking through the fire, my angel lifts me higher. She's teaching me my bliss, teaching me my joy, teaching me to keep living and loving and living and loving till the angels sing, yes, yes, yes. I am dancing on a cloud and I'm singing real loud. When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. That's amore. We're going to lose all confusion, all sickness and illusion, all guilt, all anger, all regret, and just be here now. Because this is the day that Spirit has made. I shall rejoice and be glad in it. I shall rejoice and be glad in it. Brother Matty made 60 and I'm feeling pretty nifty. Dance with me, dog. Jack, feast with me, my land, let's get back. Bernie's riding on his Harley on the highway in the sky. Judy is a churro who never had to cry. Coming on home, yeah, coming on home. We're getting on back to the spiritual zone. We're living and loving and living and loving to the angels sing. Yes, yes, yes. We're living and loving and living and loving to the angels sing. Yes, yes.
Thank you, John. That was very, very emotional. So, our next reader is me. So, then we have one more reader after that, and then we are done. And I hope you will say hi to our friends over here. I lost it. Hi. I could read you this long one, but I think I will read you. Okay. This is, well, I don't have to tell you what it is. I will miss you when I'm dead. There's an appeal to dying, or so I'm told. First, you no longer have to register your car. If you want to streak across the field during playoff season, no one will stop you. You can prank your neighbors and friends like, who moved that potted plant? Glasses become irrelevant, and noses, and fingers. So what, you're now eligible to attend the post-corporeal weekly square dance and potluck. Hell, you might even enjoy it. But you only die once. And there's no one I'd rather die beside than you. Until then, living will have to do. Our final reader for tonight is, I left my clipboard over there, but I think her name is Sherry. Come on up, Sherry. And I want to say thank you to all of our readers tonight. Brave both the wind and the traffic and the microphone.
Hi, my name is Sherry. Stay with me until I fall asleep, and hard, deep breath of day turns to cool, calm breath of night. Stay with me until I fall asleep and dream of meadows of amber and crimson and purple blooms. Stay with me until I fall asleep and the sweet smell of white gardenia perfume fills my nose and floods my room. Stay with me until I fall asleep and Grandma comes, takes my hand and leads me away from sleep and breath and dreams. Oh, stay with me until I fall asleep.
Well, I want to just say thank you again to everyone for being here tonight, and just enjoy some free popcorn. If you are still looking for books, we've got books. And please say hi to our friends, and we'll see you here next month. Thank you.